I wish we had more of those emails read, but I think it is important for citizens to understand the rationale behind having a body of local government called Salga. One would appreciate that in terms of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, we have 3 spheres of government. Mm-hmm. And the most expansive sphere of government is local government. So the Constitution envisages in Section 40 the establishment of a cooperative architecture for our country in terms of the 3 spheres of government cooperating with one another on the areas of policy development, lawmaking, improvement of service delivery, and coordination of delivery and engagement. So what it envisages in terms of Section 163 of the Constitution is an establishment of an organization to represent local government in the IGR engagement. So that body...
What is IGR?
IGR is Intergovernmental Relations Engagement. And it envisaging that national legislation must establish a body because it will be very difficult. When you look at local government, it's fairly more complex than national government, where you have one national government, you have got 9 provincial governments. When it comes to local government, one would appreciate that we are moving from a fairly expansive. When you look at the transformative path of local government, we're coming from 1,335 municipalities. And in 2000, we had 846 municipalities. And in 2006, local government election, we had 283 municipalities. Today, we're sitting at 278. So it will be fairly difficult to engage with local government individually in the IGR system, hence the envisaged establishment
But explain
of
that a
one
little bit,
body.
because just before the news at 8, before you came on, I was talking to Kenneth Brown, who's the DDG Intergovernmental Relations at Treasury. Okay. They have gone directly to deal with Nala municipality because Nala municipality has not complied with certain prescripts. For instance, he was talking about no evidence of municipal budget, KBMG report. So government does deal directly with municipalities without having to go through you.
Now, of course, you have got different prescripts that govern. For National Treasury, there's Municipal Finance Management Act. So they will require what we call Section 71 reports for local government. When there is no responses at given moment, nothing precludes any sphere of government, as envisaged in Section 154 of the Constitution, to inquire reasons behind non-compliance on certain matters. So it is not
and even
about...
take action. And even take action as they have. They are now threatening to, of course, withdraw or not even give them the funds. The point, though, and the point I'm driving at is if you can be overridden or overlooked like that, what difference can you make then in terms of forcing these municipalities to improve services?
It is not being about overlooked. People must understand the nature of organized local government. It's a body that represents local government, as I said, in the IGR system, whether it's an NCOP, whether it's National Assembly, whether it's in Cabinet or Minimex or Premiers for whatever structures that we have in the IGR Framework Act. The second one is to be the employer body. So one of the emails that you were reading earlier on, that is a parasitic body that receives money, give employees, I think is quite unfortunate. It's more bordering on ignorance, to say the least. Because in the engagement of an expansive sphere of local government, you can't have a situation where there is a local engagement between unions and municipalities, because the balance of forces there may result in uneven outcomes. So if there is a better play between any of the parties in municipality A, and in municipality B, the different outcomes, you would know it might undermine labor relations harmony in our country. Hence the collective bargaining that you have in national and provincial as well as local government.
But
That's
let me go
one
back
aspect.
to the IGR, the intergovernmental relation element, because, and I may be wrong about this, I assume that that's the core of municipalities and supposedly the core of governance generally. And this is where then I'm saying that if government is able to go to Nala municipality without going through you, then what is your influence? How do you influence what happens at local government?
In terms of influencing what happens in local government, in all these structures, in terms of policies, we look at the best policies that we would want to see implemented at local government. So in crafting of the laws or in crafting of policies, those are done through IGR systems, in parliamentary processes or in the initiation by the executive, be it national, provincial. So when you have to talk about allocation of grants, you have to talk about allocation of fiscal relations. So Salga represents municipalities in the FFC, the body that allocates resources to our country, to make the case known that local government, yes, it might have the same title, municipality, but it's all different, metropolitan, district municipalities and so on. So the allocations must be reflective of this reality. So the kind of impact is cross-cutting. So when it comes to a NALA that is not, you have Salga that would engage with the municipality, but you don't have executive powers to say, we will call you to account on this matter, because legislation will then say, who is the portfolio who have got such competence. If National Treasury, they will do that even for any provincial government. They will do that even for a national government. So you can't call that if they go directly, it means it is to the uselessness of another institution.
But the reason why, again, I'm harping a little bit on this is to establish whether the calls you're making at your conference will really make a difference. You're talking about professionalizing the sphere of government. Is it just rhetoric, or will it resonate and make a difference on the ground?
Of course, Golan, it definitely does resonate in the sense that when you look at some of the laws that have been put in place most recently, the amendment to the Systems Act, the amendments to the Municipal Finance Management Act, and other related Fiscal Powers Relations Act, all of those are to the credit of Salga in terms of pushing very strongly to say that, look, local government may be suffering from a weight of problems that may not necessarily be of their own making, but equally, local government must take a fair share blame of some of the realities that happen on the ground. So we need to professionalize the sector. We need to take seriously the question of accountability. And when there is no accountability, there must be demonstrable evidence of action being taken, whether it is political or it is administrative. So that's the kind of outcomes that cannot attract a label of rhetoric in terms of engagement in the IGR.
Sure. But again, what I'm interested in, because I've heard this before, I've heard it from other sectors of society where they've said, well, let's professionalize, where they've said we want to see outcomes, we want action taken against those who are not complying, whether it's the legal prescripts or not. But clearly, we're back at the same old point where we're talking about, yes, there are problems at this sphere of government, how do we deal with it? Where do you think the answers to some of those problems that we talk about will come from?
Well, it will be appreciated, Bolana, to also understand the trajectory of local government transformation. And I think we have emphasized this point quite a number of times. Most of the time we tend to harp on some of the isolated incidences and fail to lift up for the benefit of citizens who have a direct experience of positive outcomes of local government. So the debate most of the time, unfortunately, tends to focus on the negative isolated incidents, like you will point out Nala, or you would point out ratepayers marching in Jeffreys Bay or in Ventersdorp. You have one of the municipalities in the most rural areas in Engcobo being looked at as a model in terms of looking after the indigenous citizens. You have the city of Johannesburg that has far surpassed any level of transformation in our country in terms of infrastructure. And you have a whole range of many municipalities who today, as at this conference, we're honoring them for outstanding performance on financial management, on outstanding performance on providing quality water, which is comparable to anywhere in the world.
But some may argue, Mr. George, that,
Yes.
that focus, that harping, is not necessarily baseless. It is based on some of the documentation that is out there. The Auditor General, for instance, has given us the books year in, year out. He seems to have said the same thing, that there is no compliance with procurement legislation, that financial management is flouted at this sphere of government. Those are the reasons why people then say, wait a minute, if we can't control the finances, what else can we control? How else are we likely to develop things at this sphere of government? So it is not necessarily baseless, that concentration on the negative.
Of course, no one says it's baseless, and I'm neither making an assertion that it is baseless. We're talking about a local government that as recent as 10 years ago, since 2000, has undergone massive transformation in terms of consolidation. And I want to re-emphasize this point. The reforms that have been placed in terms of local government are very, very good in terms of strengthening that sphere of local government. But equally, as you introduce reforms, the pace and complexity of such reforms do not enable local government to embed its system. So you will have year one, Auditor General comes and audits, and year two, there's changes in the GRAP system. By the time you cope as a municipality with the scale, the cost and complexity and capacities required, you've got new reforms. So we've been saying in the national IGR system, much as we appreciate these changes, it's important to allow space for local government to adapt, because it's not only about a circular that is brandished about that you must comply. You must introduce new changes to your billing system. And so the sheer scale and complexity does wobble local government at certain instances. But we must also appreciate that the role of Salga for the last 10 years has been quite phenomenal. I will cite only 3 issues. One of the key pioneering issues that we have raised is the establishment of municipal public accounts committees to mirror what is happening at national government level in terms of ensuring that much as our own system is quite complex in local government, it's not comparable where you have separation of powers. Here you've got both executive and legislative powers in a municipality, but you don't have internal mechanism to hold each other accountable. So we then said, let's introduce municipal public accounts committees. To date, Polani, 223 of 278 municipalities. As Salga, working together with national government, we established municipal public committees, and we have trained people.
Scopa type committees. Okay, I'll pick up on that.
Yes.
I'll pick up on that in a minute. But, I just need a word from Mr. Mavuso, because the reason why we talk about these things the way we do, Mr. Mavuso, is so that then we say, can we hold Salga to their word in the future? Is this word likely to make a difference on the ground in terms of how services are delivered?
If Salga is the representative body of all municipalities, then yes, we can hold Salga accountable. And hence we're looking forward and wanting to know this request for constitutional amendment. What are the intentions that can really empower or build capacity within municipalities so that they do something better and faster than the way it is happening now? Because the outcry that is out there, it looks like it's one way. We needed to hear from the representative body like Salga, what else can it be done in order for municipalities to showcase the other good that is there?
Let me just quickly talk to me, Mr. George, about the constitutional amendments.
Thank you very much, Xolani. As we have indicated, we have recently concluded a very successful conference as organized local government, where we had no less than 204 municipalities in our country out of 278 participating in shaping the architecture of the organization going forward. I think it's important to start by clarifying so that when we talk about constitutional amendments versus the deficit of understanding, which I'm picking up from commentators as well as the general public, is to understand the nature of Salga. Salga is an organization which is an association of municipalities. It is no different to any other association in the world. Now, when it comes to our country, its uniqueness is that it is an association of a sphere of government in which, in our own constitution of the Republic, the architecture recognizes municipalities informed by three principles. In Section 40 of the Constitution, we had what we call principles that define government as three spheres: interdependent, interrelated, and distinct. So when it comes to an association at local government, given that type of architecture, it then establishing a reinforcing mechanism in terms of Section 154 that says, although we have got these three spheres, interdependent and autonomous and so on, all of them, there's one cutting thread. They are all interrelated. And when it comes to support, national government and provincial government are enjoined similarly to provide support to local government. Now, the theory I'm putting in place is that when it comes to an association like Salga, you have 278 municipalities whose distinctiveness they bring into the table. They are an organization that is an entity of government or organ of our government that is having both executive and legislative powers on its own. So when it comes into an association. You will take the model of AU or the model of UN. That's what I would compare in a simplistic way. You still have your own autonomy as a member state into that. So as you have Salga, the only mechanism that the Constitution guarantees is that if there is any failure in any of these three spheres, local and provincial, the Constitution then provides a treating mechanism in terms of Section 100. You will intervene.